Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May audio only Q&A. I hope you can hear me okay. I know you can't see me, but just imagine me smiling broadly like you see on your screen there. That's just me. And my presence is felt through the yellow waveform that's bouncing up and down on your screen. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend, and we have a ton of questions. Now, my bandwidth is a bit limited today, so we may have some interruptions, some problems. Let me know if you're having any difficulty understanding the audio or if there's any problem with the transmission. There's not much I can do about it, but I will certainly commiserate with you. And of course, we are recording this and we'll be replaying it later in case there's any problems. If you didn't notice, we have the Slido ready, and please go there and ask your questions. And we're ready to start with the first question of the day. All right, our first question of the day comes from Jock on the Rock. Could you explain how miners signal to the network their support for an upgrade such as Taproot? Also, how do mining pools themselves decide whether to signal support? Is this done democratically, or does the pool leader decide? That's a great question, Jock. So for those who don't know, we are currently in a feature upgrade period for the Taproot set of feature upgrades for the Bitcoin protocol. Taproot is the shorthand for a series of improvements that are described in three different BIPs, Bitcoin Improvement Proposals. Those are BIP 340, 341, and 342. They include Taproot, TapScript, and Schnorr signatures. We are currently doing a speedy trial activation. The speedy trial activation is measuring the intent of miners to support this set of features through a voting period that started on let's see, when was it? It was April 24th and will end in August. And during that period, miners can signal by setting the block version number in the blocks that they mine, such as to signal their readiness to support Taproot. If enough miners signal readiness for Taproot, then the feature will be locked in before August at any time during the 2-week retargeting period, which is the normal heartbeat of Bitcoin's difficulty algorithm. Every 2 weeks we adjust the difficulty, and that's the period we use for measuring the votes. If 90% of miners are signaling during any one of the 2-week periods between now and August, that feature, Taproot, will get locked in, and then it will activate in November. At that point, it will be something you can use on-chain, and miners will support it as part of the consensus rules. This is a soft fork, meaning that it is a forwards compatible change. It's opt-in. You can support it if you want to. You can use it if you want to. You don't have to use it. And if you don't do anything, your nodes will continue to be able to validate all of the other features of Bitcoin without losing the chain. Yeah, so right now, how are miners signaling? The Taproot activation is happening using a agreed procedure called BIP 9. It's a slightly modified version of BIP 9, but the bottom line is this. Within every block, there is a block version number. The block version number has been split into various bits in binary that are used to signal specific features. And so one of the bits in the block version is allocated for signaling readiness for the activation of Taproot. If that bit is set to 1, that means the miner is voting that they are ready for activation. They're signaling that they're ready for activation. If it is 0, that means they are not ready. So normally it would be 0. If miners do nothing, they're going to show that they're not ready for activation. They have to change something in their mining software. They have to set that feature, and then their mining software will produce blocks that have in that particular bit in the block header and the block version will have that bit set to 1, and that tells the world, I'm ready for Taproot. So Now, this is normally done by mining pools, not miners themselves. And that's because the block header that miners who are participating in a pool get to mine is set by the pool. So when miners participate in a pool, they don't construct their own block headers, so they don't get to change the block version. The vast majority of mining pools use a protocol where the block header is set by the pool operator, so the pool operator is choosing whether they're ready for activation. So what we're really counting is how many of the mining pools are ready for activation, and of course the miners can vote indirectly. If they don't want Taproot and their mining pool has decided to signal readiness, the miners can simply change to a mining pool and take their hash rate with them. So participation in a mining pool, of course, is voluntary, and a miner can switch pools anytime they want. All right, that's the first question we've got on today. Let me just quickly switch to the chat while we queue up the second question and see how things are going. I don't know if you can hear me. Let's see. All right, yes, there was a little follow-up question there, which was who locks in these features. So the protocol locks in the features. So there's a set of rules inside the Bitcoin software that were released a couple of weeks ago that activate Taproot based on this protocol. So this is part of the Bitcoin software. It's been incorporated into many different clients. And what it does is it's looking for that particular bit value, that binary value inside the block version. And if it sees 90% of all of the blocks within a 2-week activation period having that bit set, then it considers that feature locked. Once it's locked, that's done. It can't be unlocked. It doesn't matter what the vote does next. Once the threshold is reached in any 2-week period, the software will activate that feature, and the activation date will be in November at a specific block height. All of that is coded in the software, so nobody pushes a button or activates it in Bitcoin. All of the distributed clients, nodes, etc., that are watching the miners produce blocks are all counting the same number of blocks over the same period of time. So every single Bitcoin node will know the moment this feature is activated, and will then start expecting to see blocks with Taproot and Schnorr signatures and TapScript in them starting November at a specific block height. It's a coordinated and, of course, decentralized approach, just like all of the nodes and all of the miners know when to change difficulty. All of the nodes and all of the miners know when the halving is happening to change the reward. In exactly the same way, all of the nodes and all of the miners are looking for this bit, are counting the vote, and as soon as they see the vote activating, they will start processing blocks with that expectation in November. All right, let's get ready for the next question. I still see we have the previous question on screen. 1 second. There we go, a slight technical snafu. For some reason, the browser decided to quit on me, and it wasn't updating the question. But now the question has been updated. We're back. We're back. Is everybody okay? Did you get freaked out? Don't worry. We're back. Pendulet and Teller ask, please talk about what we're seeing on taproot.watch so far. Can a bad state actor stop 90% from being reached? I've heard there's a user-activated soft fork if we don't hit 1815. Any details would be appreciated. Can I help to somehow reach 90%? Thanks. That's a great question. Let's look at what Penn and Teller are talking about here. You see here, Penn and Teller mentioned taproot.watch. Now, for your convenience, I have that in. There we go. All right. Can you see that? This is a website called taproot.watch, and taproot.watch shows us the current activation. Okay. So this is a website that tracks the information that is present in the blocks. Now, basically, every Bitcoin node out there, every Bitcoin client, every Bitcoin miner is seeing the same information. And this website is tracking it for you so you can visualize it and see it. So every 2016 blocks from the Genesis block, we have a difficulty period. And that's the period in which difficulty gets readjusted. Every 2016 blocks. So within that period, that's a signaling period. We use the same 2-week period to do a round of voting. So in the current round of voting, what you can see here is out of the 2016 blocks that are in the current round, you see that 963 blocks have signaled yes. That means those blocks had, within their version number, they had a yes. And you can see that here, like if you look at this green block, right? And I can actually click on this. This one was mined by F2 Pool, and this is a clickable button. So let's click on it and see what happens. It's kind of cool. So this takes us to a website that is tracking blocks. If you look at the version number of the block, you see here that it is signaling Taproot. So the version number of this block is signaling Taproot, and you can see that by clicking on that block. I don't know if did the screen change. It did change. That's good. All right, going back here, and if we look at this other block here from btc.com, and I open this one, and you see there's a different version number in there. That version number is not signaling Taproot. Okay, so really simple. It's a 2016 block period. That's all of these blocks, these squares you see here. The ones that have already happened are the ones that are colored in. If they were signaling, they're green. If they're not signaling, they're red. And the ones that are empty, these blocks haven't happened yet. Once the last block of the period, which would be block 685439, is mined, then we start from the top again and we have another signaling period. Now, interesting here, in order for Taproot to be activated within a signaling period, 1815 or 1815 blocks, 90% need to signal yes. And we can tell if 296 have signaled no within this period, that means that even if all of the ones coming next were yes, we still wouldn't hit 90%. And that's why it says here, Taproot cannot be locked in within this period. So next period, we'll see if we can reach it. Now, I want you to pay attention to something else. Look at the percentage of red versus green blocks at the beginning of the signaling period. And when we started 2 weeks ago in the previous signaling period, it was a lot of red. And gradually the percentage of green started increasing. And once a mining pool goes to green, they tend to stay at green. So we're seeing a greater percentage. Now look what happens as the signaling period continues. Do you see something? You may notice that the number of red blocks has dropped dramatically. And if you look at where we are here, now we've got a very big percentage of the blocks. So what we're looking for is less than 1 in 10 blocks being red. If 9 out of 10 blocks come in green, then we're going to activate. So it looks like we're heading for activation pretty soon. Maybe next period, maybe the period after that. And we have until August. So I think that's going to happen. Honestly, it looks very positive right now. There doesn't seem to be a lot of controversy. And of course, one thing to keep in mind here is that we can see which miners are activating, and we can see which miners are holding back, or mining pools are holding back. So ironically, what's going to happen here is if there's one or two holdouts, they're going to start getting all kinds of pressure from the community. Now back to Penn and Teller's question. So first of all, can a bad state actor stop 90% from being reached? A state actor that controlled the mining pool, yes, certainly, that is possible. I think it's extremely unlikely. Then Penn and Teller say, I've heard that there's a user-activated soft fork if we don't hit 1815. So what that means is, what Penn is alluding to here is that this speedy trial activation process is intended to be speedy and be a quick trial of whether there is enough support. If by August it has not activated and the voting period ends in August, if by that time it hasn't been activated, the community has shown readiness to try alternative activation mechanisms, including a user-activated soft fork, which is almost like a boycott of the miners, where users reconfigure their nodes to simply reject any blocks that are not activating, that are not signaling activation, to kind of force the miners. I honestly don't think that's going to be necessary. But of course, just having that option available to users puts enormous pressure on miners. And they don't want to get into a power struggle against users, because last time they did in SegWit in August of 2017, they lost that power struggle. They had to capitulate to a potential embargo. So there's a chance that simply the threat of a user-activated soft fork will be enough. All right. Can I help somehow to reach 90%? No, this is a miner activation right now. So unless you're mining or running a mining pool, really, you can't really help to reach 90%. Stand by. Give the miners a chance to do the right thing. And if that fails in August, then there will be some things that users can do. Those users who are running nodes that have economic activity through wallets can actually then start voting with their nodes in the form of a user-activated soft fork. All right, give me a brief second. I'm gonna go on mute. We're a bit short-handed today, so I don't have my normal number of moderators on here, and it appears that some rude people are trying to brigade the chat and promote various things that they want to promote, and so they're going to get blocked from the channel. So here we go. There's some more. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's go back to the questions, see what else we have here. I hope you're enjoying this explanation of Taproot. Don't piss off my audience. They're not going to like it if you try to shill various things. Okay, the next question comes from Yorgo, Yorgo, which is George in Greek. Are there Yasure Yorgo Yasu? Are there any concrete drawbacks or disadvantages to the Taproot upgrade? No, Yorgo, there are no concrete drawbacks or disadvantages. The Taproot upgrade is made entirely of steel. There's no concrete in it at all. It's a steel structure. No, I'm just kidding. The Taproot upgrade does have some potential drawbacks, yes. There's two that I can think of. One is that Schnorr signatures may potentially be less quantum resistant than ECDSA. But we don't know that yet, and it's really hard to evaluate that. So it's not really a drawback, however, because as I mentioned before, Taproot is an opt-in system. You don't have to use Schnorr signatures. You can if you want to, and if you decide and use ECDSA. So for the first time ever, we're going to have two signature types on the network. All right, sorry about that. It seems that we dropped some packets. We dropped all of the packets. I mean, um, buffering like crazy. I apologize for that. I think we're back. I think we're back now. And it appears like I'm sitting in a chair here and in front of my laptop watching the screen, and there are so many packets on the floor all around me, all around my feet. I'm up to my ankles in packets. All of the packets got dropped on the floor. Oh well. Unfortunately, as you may have guessed, I'm currently streaming from a third world location known as the United States, where our internet tends to be very slow. Have you heard the expression, the USA is a third world country with a Gucci belt? Yeah, kind of like that. All right, so Taproot disadvantages, part two. After that brief interruption, we're going to have the production editor cut that part out so we can continue as if nothing happened. Okay, so one drawback, as we said, is potentially quantum resistance. And in that case, we do have the option to run ECDSA instead of Taproot. But the other really interesting thing is that, ironically, the very fact that we were able to activate Schnorr, if we do activate Schnorr, shows that the Bitcoin system can run two signature algorithms in parallel, with people being able to choose one or the other. So even if Schnorr signatures are not as quantum resistant, the fact that this upgrade happened means that we can add other signature schemes that are even more quantum resistant, and Bitcoin becomes effectively a multi-signature algorithm protocol, which is a really big deal. Not many competing blockchains have the ability to do multiple signature algorithms. Some do, and this will be a very nice addition to, obviously, the leading blockchain and cryptocurrency out there. The other potential disadvantage, which has been criticized for Taproot, is that because Taproot adds another address format, so we'll have legacy, we'll have SegWit, and we'll have pay to Taproot. The problem is that if very few people adopt Taproot and very few wallets enable and implement Taproot, then it actually makes statistical analysis of who's using SegWit, who's using legacy, and who's using Taproot addresses easier. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. Honestly, I think any wallet that implemented SegWit will be able to implement Taproot relatively easily, and the codebase has been out for quite a while. All right, that's enough of that question. Let's see what we have next. Demosthenes asks, is it advisable to consolidate small amounts of Bitcoin received over time to different addresses within the same wallet into a single address? Does it affect the usability or health of your coins and the larger blockchain? Demosthenes, this is one of those questions where it depends. It depends what you're trying to achieve, and there's pluses and minuses of such an approach. So let's talk about pluses first. If you have a lot of very small UTXO, UTXO are unspent transaction outputs, whether they're in different addresses or the same address, but they're just kind of fragmented little chunks of coin. Then when you construct transactions with those transactions will have many, many inputs. So transactions consume chunks of coin that have been sent to you, and they're indivisible. So if you want to make a bigger payment and you have lots of little chunks of coins, you're going to have to aggregate them all together. That transaction is going to be a heavy transaction, and it's going to be a big transaction in terms of bytes. And so the fee that you're going to pay for that, depending on the current rate in Satoshis per byte to get onto the blockchain, may be quite hefty. So to answer your question, if you can find periods of time in the network where transaction fees are really low, when the network is underutilized, and that happens every now and then that is a good time to consolidate some of the change or small amounts in your wallet into larger amounts. And that will allow you later, when you want to make a transaction and the network is congested and transaction fees are higher, you know, that larger amount will be in one chunk, one UTXO of coins, and so your transaction will have one input instead of many inputs, and that will make it a much lighter weight transaction with lower fees. So yes, wallet consolidation is something that you might decide to do during a period of time where the network is quiet and fees are low. However, that's mostly about consolidating multiple different coin amounts into a bigger chunk of money. I wouldn't necessarily consolidate different addresses into a single address unless it's necessary, because those different addresses also have small chunks of money. And the reason for that is because it will damage the privacy that you have. If you consolidate different addresses into one, what that signals to anyone watching the network and doing statistical analysis, correlation analysis on the blockchain, is they're going to assume that likely that final address is controlled by one person. And when you make a transaction where all of those inputs are aggregated, they're going to assume that all of those original addresses belong to one person. If any one of those addresses has been associated with your identity through an exchange or a merchant that participates in these KYC schemes, then they'll be able to assume that all of those addresses belong to you and track you and break your privacy. So this is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, doing consolidation of UTXO when fees are low is a good idea. On the other hand, if you consolidate from many different addresses or many different chunks of Bitcoin, if you do it in a sloppy manner, if you're not careful about how you combine them, you could reduce your privacy. All right, give me a second. I'll take a brief break here, drink some coffee, look at the chat, see what's happening, and I'll be right back with you for the next question. And we're back. Let's see what question we have next. Lucia, aka Dancing Crypto, asks, "Hey Andres, what's the real truth about Bitcoin's mining usage of renewable and non-renewable energy?" Lucia, interestingly enough, I don't think we have the truth. One of the things about Bitcoin's mining that both critics and supporters try to ignore is the fact that miners are anonymous. And they try to draw conclusions about where miners are based on where mining pools are, even though those are two completely different things. You could have a mining pool in China and it could have miners from Texas participating in it. In fact, that happens. So we don't really know where the miners are. We also don't know what electricity they use. There have been a number of informal surveys asking miners or mining companies that have self-identified, that have said, hey, we are doing mining. We are doing mining in this region. And there have been some surveys of those kinds of things. But here's the thing. There's no way to verify either that the survey data is correct or incorrect, if the miners are telling the truth or not. What we do know is that Bitcoin mining can happen anywhere that you have electricity. And so the primary driver is how much that electricity costs. If the electricity is cheap, then miners will be attracted to it. The cheapest form of electricity is waste energy. That means energy that is produced but is not consumed. There is no consumption in the area, or the amount of energy that is being produced cannot be reduced. You can't produce less, and at the same time the demand isn't there to consume it. So let me give you an example. If you have solar power, you don't turn that off. So if you're producing 5 megawatts of solar power in a massive solar farm, and you only have 2 megawatts of demand in the area, that means you're producing an extra 3 megawatts of waste energy, and the marginal cost of that is zero. That energy would otherwise be completely wasted. It doesn't go anywhere. But the solar panels are still producing it, and the cost of installing those solar panels has already been incurred. So if you plant a Bitcoin miner next to that, you can get very cheap electricity that was otherwise going to be wasted. And that's going to subsidize the production of more solar panels and solar energy. So from that scenario, we can see the waste energy, whether that's flaring of gas that would otherwise be wasted because the gas fields are too far away from areas of demand, whether it's hydroelectric, solar, or wind. All of those forms of energy tend to have a mismatch between where the energy is produced and where it's consumed. And they also tend to have situations where if you don't use the energy, it's wasted, like it's sitting there. So there's good reason to use that energy and provide it at a very low cost. Bitcoin is uniquely suited to pursuing that type of waste energy and low cost energy. Now, if you have a government that is unconcerned about climate change and carbon output, and they do not either regulate the production of energy so as to prevent harmful production and polluting production, or they don't tax the production of carbon and therefore allow something like a coal burning factory to not only produce energy cheaply, but also not taxing the external factor of the carbon damage that's being done, then yes, Bitcoin miners will locate there and try to consume that energy too. So the problem there isn't that Bitcoin miners are producing demand. The problem you have there is that you have governments that are unconcerned about the damage they're doing to the environment and are not taxing carbon emissions. If you tax carbon emissions, then things that are polluting are financially unprofitable for miners. The electricity cost is too high for miners, and they will migrate to places where you get renewable energy. If you produce cheap energy that is dirty, then miners will go there. And so the real issue with the environmental footprint of Bitcoin has to do with the willingness of governments to regulate the production of harmful carbon into the atmosphere, to regulate pollution, to tax pollution and carbon. It's really not about demand. It's about the quality of energy production. In fact, if governments regulate if governments regulate and tax carbon, then Bitcoin demand actually supports and incentivizes and in a way subsidizes the installation of renewable energy. It creates the kind of demand and economy that is very portable, that makes it very easy to deploy large amounts of solar panels, wind farms, and hydro, and can accelerate the transition of the entire world to renewable energy. So Bitcoin is neither good nor bad. Bitcoin is simply a demand for energy. And if it's matched with politics that are environmentally friendly and policies and tax structures that are not subsidizing fossil fuels and carbon positive polluting production, then Bitcoin is very green. If governments are unconcerned with climate and the environment, then Bitcoin simply provides one more source of demand for factories that are producing energy with a lot of pollution. We shouldn't be worried about how we consume energy. We should be worried about having the political will to reduce pollution and damage to the environment. Bitcoin isn't the villain here. It's the same thing, ironically, with electric cars, in that if you have an electric car, all you've done is you've shifted the place where the energy is being consumed, and you've decentralized it a lot more, which means that if you then put solar panels on your roof and charge overnight, your carbon footprint goes to zero. Or not quite zero, because the solar panels themselves have production carbon footprint, but very, very close. If, on the other hand, you're plugging in your Tesla into a grid where the political will for environmental protection doesn't exist, and there is fossil fuel burning factory that's producing that energy, then your electrically powered, environmentally friendly Tesla is burning coal. It's just burning coal at a distance from where the car is. What it does is it shifts a lot of the fossil fuel damage to a single place, one factory that can be more easily regulated, rather than trying to measure the emissions from a million tailpipes of a million cars. And Bitcoin is very much the same thing. Rather than worrying about a million little generators producing fumes all around the place, Bitcoin tends to concentrate energy demand and energy production, so you can then focus on a couple of specific energy producers and regulate them and control their carbon emissions. And that makes if there is the political will, it makes the enforcement of pollution and carbon controls much easier. All right, let's see. Let's get the next question. I'll check the chat and see how everyone's doing. Oh, Jay suggests I should turn on super chats. I'm very reluctant to turn on super chats because I don't want to create a pay-for-play scenario that does not allow people to chat. I know it would help with the spammers and the shills, but I really want to keep this as open as possible, and give people good faith options. All right, let's see what else we have here. Anonymous asks, confession, I bought a hardware wallet a while ago, but I haven't used it yet. I want to use it, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm afraid I'll mess it up. So it just sits there. Are there any resources that can help me figure this out? Anonymous, don't beat yourself up. I know the feeling. It's difficult. I would suggest that the best way to do this is to start with a very small amount and learn by transferring a very small amount to a hardware wallet. Setting it up, doing a backup, doing a restore, doing a backup, doing a restore, wiping it and restoring it several times until you're confident you know how to do this, and testing with a very small amount until you're really, really comfortable. In fact, that's the methodology I have demonstrated in an upcoming workshop. We're doing a security workshop, which includes a hardware wallet demo and talks about best practices for backup, for restore, and for doing a small transaction first. And I demonstrate all of that with a video series. So this week, actually, my patrons on Patreon are getting the early release of that. They're going to be providing feedback, acting a bit like a focus group, and they're getting discounted access to that so they can help us iron out any bugs, polish it up, and get it ready. I expect within the next couple of weeks, we're going to have that workshop ready. And that hopefully will give you a great resource for how to use a hardware wallet. Stand by. Oh, I seem to be pressing a lot of wrong buttons today. Now you saw a countdown to nothing. That was weird. All right, so follow-up question. What is it? What's in the workshop? We're actually doing a number of different things. One is an information security workshop. It's called The Road to Self-Custody. It's about what you need to do in order to fulfill the vision of your keys, your coins. And for many people, it's really difficult to take those steps to get to self-custody where they control the keys. And so this workshop is going to be about how to do that, how to understand what the risks are, how to evaluate your readiness, how to understand all of the different mechanisms you can use to guard against risk, an explanation of hardware wallets and two-factor authentication and hot versus cold and all of that. And then finally, a hardware wallet demo that explains hands-on how to use a hardware wallet, how to go through a process that gives you confidence that it's working correctly. Okay. Penn and Teller say, what would have to happen for you to think that there is a 10% chance that Bitcoin is not inevitable? Okay. Here's the thing. Bitcoin is not inevitable. I think I've said many, many times that I don't think Bitcoin is inevitable. I think it has a very strong chance of success, and the longer it survives, regardless of price, the longer it survives, the longer it operates, the more we develop it, the more software is developed around it, the more people use it, the stronger it gets. But I never think it's inevitable because you can never guess what might happen. There may be a bug or something like that that's catastrophic and irrevocable, but I very much doubt it at this point. So I have a very high degree of confidence in Bitcoin. I would say it's over 90% degree of confidence, but that doesn't mean it's inevitable. I don't think anything in life can be counted on as inevitable, except for death and taxes, of course. So will Bitcoin succeed? It's already succeeding. It's already succeeding for many people who don't have other options. It's already succeeding for people who have used it over the long term as a store of value. It's even succeeding for speculators who generated some very good returns. Now, the last week, has probably worried a lot of people. I know you're all screaming on the chat that I'm not answering questions about price. Perhaps you're new here. Price is not something that I am particularly interested in. But for those of you who are worried and concerned, is this the end? Are we going to crash forever? Obviously, I can't really predict these things. But what I'll tell you is that perhaps you're forgetting that last March, a year and 2 months ago, Bitcoin was at $3,800. And if at that point someone told you it's cheap, you would have gone, no, it's crashing. I can't possibly buy now. And then every time it goes up, people start complaining, it's too expensive. I can't buy now. I've already missed the boat. Well, the boat just came around again. I think if you're really worried about the price, I have one piece of advice that has worked for me every time. This is my trading advice. This is my technical analysis. It's very, very simple. Zoom out. That's it. Zoom out. If it looks horrible today, zoom out. Zoom out to 3 months, zoom out to 6 months, zoom out to 3 years. And then look at the bigger picture. Yeah, it can be very painful when the market goes up, and everybody's looking for a reason. Everybody's trying to find the reason why Bitcoin crashed or went down a lot. And there's a really simple reason. It's not whales manipulating the price. It's not a global conspiracy. It's not governments ganging up on Bitcoin. It's the reason Bitcoin went down is because it had previously gone up a lot. And it had gone up because it was going up, and then it went down, and once it went down, people saw that it's going down, and it went down some more. Really, that's all that changed between last week and this week was sentiment. Nothing else. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay, I've been advised by my producer that we have a new emoji, and in order to find that new emoji, you have to be a YouTube member to have access to the emojis in the first place. And if you can, to find that, you need to do an emoji storm. So please proceed to the emoji storm. This is a special activity for the YouTube members. And looking for the emoji storm now. Oh, here it comes. Is that a cat with laser eyes? Is that a Bitcoin with a party hat? Oh, very good. Excellent. Some great emojis there. Thank you so much, all of the YouTube members, for helping me with this emoji storm. I hope you enjoyed that. You know, it's a tremendous perk. I mean, I think that's worth $1.99 a month because, I mean, look at these beautiful emojis designed by my team. These are very, very highly exclusive. And for the YouTube membership price, you too can bring emojis. Now, you can't use them anywhere else except for this chat, which diminishes the value a tiny bit. I think it would be really funny if you could use these in somebody else's chat. You could show up like in a chat of Peter Schiff or Paul Krugman and just dump some Bitcoin emojis in there. That would be really funny. But you can only use them in this chat. I think that's still great value. Let's go to the next question. Kevin says, I did a simple token swap on Ethereum mainnet today, and the fee was an eye-watering $60. How can Ethereum continue to be useful to people with fees that are so high? Are there no inbuilt economic incentives that can push fees lower? This is a great question, Kevin. I mean, you know, it's ironic because a few years back, when Bitcoin fees started climbing, a lot of people in the Ethereum community were pointing and laughing, and they were making fun of Bitcoin's high fees and saying, see, we can do better. We have much, much lower fees. And I said at the time that it's very easy to mistake calm seas for good sailors. It's easy to be sitting inside the harbor on the deck chairs, sunning yourself, and pointing at the other ship that's in the Southern Ocean going up and down on 50-foot waves and go, haha, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to sail. The bottom line is that the bigger a system gets, the more difficult the scaling problems become. Right now, Ethereum people are not laughing at Bitcoin fees anymore because they've got their own problems. Of course, now there's a whole bunch of other blockchains and cryptocurrencies that are like, Bitcoin fees are too high. Look, we have very low fees. Yeah, that's because nobody uses it. Try doing it at the scale of Bitcoin consistently with actual value and people trying to attack the network adversarially and doing denial of service attacks, and let's see how long that lasts. So yeah, Ethereum's in a bit of a pickle right now. The fees are really high at times, and it varies a lot. You might find that sometimes if you wait 15 seconds, as the block clears, the fees will drop dramatically. So not only are there high fees in Ethereum, there's also a lot of fee volatility in Ethereum. They tend to jump up and go down really, really fast. Minute to minute, you will see fees that go from $60 to $5 to back to $80. There is, however, a very interesting Ethereum improvement proposal coming up, which is called EIP 1559. And this, in addition to ETH 2.0, will, I think, change things dramatically. So first, let's talk about ETH 2.0, because I have another question on the board about EIP 1559, and we'll get that other question up. So first of all, Ethereum 2.0. Ethereum 2.0 involves a massive increase in scale. And the way it does that is by having a sharded chain, meaning that instead of having one chain, there's actually 64 chains, each of which is called a shard. And they coordinate through a single chain called the beacon chain. When that happens, all of the old Ethereum, Ethereum 1, if you like, will become one of the shards of Ethereum 2. It will be basically airlifted so that everybody who is on Ethereum 1 now will be on Ethereum 2, and the entirety of the current chain will exist as a single shard in Ethereum 2. And that will leave another 63 shards worth of capacity for expansion. So obviously, if you do a 64 times increase in capacity, that should very greatly ameliorate the capacity problems and reduce fees on the chain. So one way you solve scaling is this. It's by offering more capacity through an optimization like sharding that Ethereum 2 is doing. The other one is a change to the way the market works. So let me pull up another question now about EIP 1559. Yes, and as I mentioned before, it's whenever this happens to any one of the chains, a whole bunch of people come up and say, hey, this other chain doesn't have that problem. It has very low fees. Yeah, again, that's not a good faith answer. And it's not a good faith answer because the chains that you're talking about do not have the use capacity and amount of money riding on them. You are mistaking being in the harbor with being a good sailor. You are not comparing things that are the same. Even if you think you have the theoretical capacity, real world scenarios are very different from theoretical capacity. And if these inexpensive chains are tested with the type of applications, the number of users, the amount of money riding on them, and even the level of attacks that Ethereum or Bitcoin face, you will very quickly find that it's not so easy to scale. It's the same stuff that Ethereum people used to say, mocking Bitcoin. Now, fans of various other chains, which I will not mention, are saying, we have the solution. No, you don't. You have the solution when you can prove it at scale under adversarial conditions with massive amounts of money running on the system. And you can't do that. Until you've done that, you don't have a solution. You have a theory. Not even a theory. You have a white paper. All right, let's move on. Gozgazguzgen. Oh, wait, no, I missed the EIP 1559 question. 1 second. Let me go back to EIP 1559. I don't know where it's gone. Oh, excellent. My neighbors have decided this is a good time to drill into the wall. That's fun. Let's see. All right, thank you, Never Settles and Scott6 for joining the YouTube community. Really appreciate it. Now you have new emojis. Or is that Scott G? Sorry about that. Scott G, not Scott6. Now you have new emojis, so you can actually demonstrate that. I'm going to pretend that none of you can hear the drill in the background. And we'll pull up the EIP 1559. If I keep talking, then you can't hear the drill. If I stop talking, then you'll hear it. Okay, Gosgen0. I heard a lot about Ethereum EIP 1559 lately, the so-called ultrasound money. I hear it will replace Bitcoin in the future because of this. Will Ethereum replace Bitcoin in the future? All right. So EIP 1559, what is this? This is Ethereum Improvement Proposal. That's what that means, EIP. And 1559 is an Ethereum proposal to change the way the market for fees works. And what it does is it sets a minimum amount of fees. Sorry, it sets a maximum amount of fees that will be given to miners at each round. And the rest of the fees, if paid, are burned in the block, which means that those fees, instead of going to miners, get burned and removed from circulation. So this is intended to put a brake on the fee market to reduce volatility of fees and also reduce the cost of fees in Ethereum by creating an incentive for miners to accept transactions with lower fees. Because if they try to maximize fees, they just end up burning most of those. Now, why is Gosgen calling this ultrasound money? Why are Ethereum people calling this ultrasound money? I'm not saying that Gosgen is an Ethereum person. I'm just saying that this is something that we hear a lot from the Ethereum community, that this actually makes Ethereum even more sound money than Bitcoin. And the reason for this is the idea that because of EIP 1559, Ether will actually be removed from circulation. So rather than having simply a disinflationary currency where inflation goes down over time as you issue less and less, Ethereum will have a true deflationary monetary policy because Ethereum will actually be reduced in circulation. Not simply the amount of new coins issued, but existing coins will be burned and the circulation will be reduced, therefore reducing the overall supply in a true deflationary manner, which makes it super, super sound money. So first of all, EIP 1559 is not currently active. It's being proposed for maybe releasing sometime this summer. Nobody knows exactly when that's going to happen. And we don't know how well it's going to work. It's an experiment, like most of things in Ethereum. It's a very interesting experiment to watch. Because I think it could provide an interesting new way to control fee markets. But it's, for the time being, it's a theoretical construct. We don't really have practical experience with how it will work if placed under adversarial conditions and with billions of dollars riding on it. So we'll find out. As for the final part, will this cause Ether or Ethereum to replace Bitcoin as sound money? I don't think so. One of the reasons I don't think so is, despite the fact that this will cause the Ethereum supply potentially to diminish because of burnt Ether, there is still no mechanism in Ethereum to control the supply of new Ether. So the developers can change the rules, and with the collaboration of the miners or stakeholders, they can increase the issuance rate of Ethereum and inflate it. They can create inflationary supply. They can do stimulus. Not only is it technically possible to do, but it's also culturally possible. And what I mean by that is the Ethereum community is not allergic to inflation the way the Bitcoin community is. And so something like that would not meet the kind of resistance it would meet in Bitcoin. And therefore, I think for all of those reasons, I don't think Ethereum really can play effectively in the sound money game. As I've said many times before, I think that certain design decisions and the community around them and the use cases for these blockchains are different. And just like Bitcoin can't do smart contracts without sacrificing other things, I don't think Ethereum can do sound money without sacrificing other things. It doesn't have the security, it doesn't have the community support, it doesn't really need to do sound money. And so, yeah, I don't think Ethereum replaces Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin replaces Ethereum. I think there are a few use cases that are synergistic, for which there are different solutions, and I think we will continue to see multiple blockchains competing, but competing in such a way that they do not overlap in their feature set. So no, Ethereum doesn't replace Bitcoin, in my opinion. Bitcoin doesn't replace Ethereum. They coexist, and they coexist quite nicely, and they do different things. Let's see what else we've got. We've been going for an hour. I'm going to go for another maybe 15 minutes. Let's take another couple questions and then wrap up our first audio-only live stream. I hope you are enjoying it so far, and I would like to hear your feedback as to what we can do better with the audio-only live stream, and what we did well, and if this worked well for you. Okay, so thank you, Johan Schwanpol, Luca M, and Andreas Lomaka for joining as YouTube members. And please enjoy the new emojis. Someone said, I have beautiful teeth in that photo. Do you like it? Yeah. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Photoshop. It gives you the whitest teeth possible. Photoshop is my preferred brand of teeth whitening technology. And so this photograph was taken by a professional photographer in a studio with professional lighting, and my teeth were not this white. I saw the original, and I am not that concerned about the color of my teeth, honestly. I'm quite happy with it, and they decided that I would look better if I had much whiter teeth, so that's what they did. If you see me in real life, you may be disappointed, sir. Fortunately, I have a nice voice. Thank you so much, B. de Vandelier. I'm going to try and use my vocal fry, which pisses people off. And I'll talk like a radio personality. And then people will send in complaints on the comments. All right. Picha asks, did you celebrate Bitcoin Pizza Day yesterday? Picha, no, I did not celebrate Bitcoin Pizza Day. I was out with friends. I went to a seafood restaurant and I had a crab meat roll in a nice brioche-like bread. It was delicious. And so that was lovely. Yeah, I did not celebrate Bitcoin Pizza Day yesterday. No drilling during the live stream. Anonymous asks, could the miners take their signaling for Taproot back? That's a great follow-up question. They can take their signaling for Taproot back before it is activated. So before it reaches the 90% threshold in 2016 blocks. If 1815 out of 2016 blocks signal for activation, Taproot gets locked. At that point, it doesn't matter what the votes are after that. The software then ignores block versions and votes after that moment. But before we reach 90%, let's say if we got up to 85% and then one of the pools decided to withdraw their support, they were previously signaling, then yes, it could go up to 85% and then drop to 80%. And we've seen that happen. We saw that happen with SegWit. It went up and down over time. It also depends on other factors. Obviously, which miner gets the block is a probabilistic function. It depends a bit on luck. Well, it depends entirely on luck. So proportionate to the hash rate, they have a probability of finding a nonce to solve the proof of work problem. But that means that the number of blocks in any period that a single miner gets or a single mining pool gets can vary. Once the big pools have all signaled, the smaller pools, sometimes they get a block, sometimes they don't. And so their contribution will make the count go up and down. You're going to see this kind of like fine-grained volatility. We're going to have 80%, 81%, 82%, 79%, 83, 76, 89. Just bounce up and down around that number. Hilco liked my Kardashian fry. All right, let's see. Why is Bitcoin written in C++? And what are the associated benefits? Bitcoin is not just written in C++. In fact, there are implementations of Bitcoin in C, in Rust, in Go, and in other languages. The core reference implementation is written in C++. I guess that's the language that Satoshi was comfortable with, and that's where it evolved from. So people continued writing that and developing it in C++. C++ is a very well-suited language for this. It has just enough high-level goodness to make it a fairly easy language to develop in, but it has all of the powerful low-level features you need to be doing this kind of systems-level software and protocol software. I did most of my network protocol development when I was working in that space in C++. So it's absolutely a well-suited language for that. And of course, it's very efficient. All right, let's go to the next question. Concerned Hodler. Hello, Andreas. Can the government track and identify people through blockchain analysis, even if they are not using a centralized exchange? What is the Lightning Network, and does it offer any improvement for privacy? So, Concerned Hodler, the answer is yes. They can track and identify people even if they're not using a centralized exchange, depending on what else you're doing with your Bitcoin. So, for example, if you go and buy something from a merchant that has an agreement with the chain analysis and chain surveillance firms, and you put in your real name and address when you make a payment with Bitcoin, then potentially that merchant, or if that merchant's systems are compromised, will leak that information, and now that transaction is associated with you, and so all of the addresses that feed into it. Obviously, if you're using a centralized exchange, you are guaranteed to be giving your identity and associating it with all of the Bitcoin transactions that flow into and out of that identity, and correlating all of the other addresses that can be correlated with it. So you're guaranteed with a centralized exchange to have your transaction tracked. But if you don't use a centralized exchange, you're not guaranteed to be anonymous. Because there are other ways that people can associate identity, including merchants and other transactions you may do that tie your identity to it. What is the Lightning Network? The Lightning Network is a layer 2 network. It's an overlay network that runs on top of Bitcoin, that uses the Bitcoin protocol in a creative way to keep transactions off-chain, but still use all of the security of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin currency to do transactions fast, secure, and cheaply in a peer-to-peer fashion. So Lightning is a true peer-to-peer network where payments happen and are validated between two participants who are controlling a payment channel. And then if you link multiple payment channels, you can route across the Lightning Network. And yes, it offers a massive improvement for privacy because all of these transactions happen off-chain. They're not published. And the only thing you see from the Lightning Network is the opening and closing of channels, and you can't see any of the other payments that are flowing in. So the Lightning Network is a massive increase in privacy, and if you use the Lightning Network, you can significantly increase your privacy in a very practical way. It appears people want to talk about price. I wonder why. I don't understand. I don't talk about price, people. I don't. And I didn't talk about it when it was skyrocketing. I'm certainly not going to try and read the tea leaves and do financial astrology to tell you that Bitcoin is moving in this direction because Mercury is ascendant in asparagus or whatever. Piros asks, how do you envision the use of Lightning Network in a world where the opening and closing a channel might be prohibitively expensive for a poor person? Custodial? Piros, yes, custodial is one option. Certainly, custodial Lightning wallets can be very powerful. What does custodial mean? That means that you do not have the keys. So similar to using Bitcoin through an exchange like Coinbase or Gemini or even PayPal or Robinhood that do not give you access to your Bitcoin but allow you to speculate in it and use it to make payments. That's a custodial service. Someone else has the keys, someone else has custody. And you could do that with Lightning. In fact, there are a number of custodial wallets in Lightning that you can use Lightning where somebody else who you trust has your keys. And that's not ideal, but it's also usable in that way. And it allows a single provider to consolidate open and closing of channels. The other way you can see this, of course, is we're already seeing optimizations to make opening and closing channels cheaper. And one of those optimizations is taproot. So the taproot improvement is going to massively simplify the closing of channels and the opening of channels. Is going to reduce the footprint on the blockchain, and that will reduce fees for people opening and closing channels with the Lightning Network. The other thing you can do is a variety of additional protocols that allow you to open and close multiple channels at the same time, as well as combine Lightning channel operations, so transactions that open and close channels, with regular on-chain payments. So let's say you want to buy something from a merchant. You might make a payment to the merchant on-chain and at the same time in the same transaction open a channel. Or you might find something that you want to buy online that's a fairly large purchase where it's worth spending the fee. And instead of doing that payment on-chain, you basically open a channel that is that big where the fee is worth paying to that merchant, make the payment over the Lightning Network, and now you not only have an open channel for the same amount that you would have done the payment to the merchant, but you also have a big chunk of that balance on the merchant side of the channel, which means you can now receive incoming Lightning payments up to that amount. So let me give you a practical example. Okay, if I want to do a 10 cents Lightning transaction in order to buy a picture or a magazine article or to participate in a chat forum, and it charges smaller, let's say it's to post a chat message. Obviously, I'm not going to open a channel and pay $10 in fees in order to use a Lightning channel where I just want to post chat messages in a forum where each chat message costs 0.001 pennies, a hundredth of a penny. That doesn't make sense. Well, my audio streaming seems to have completely died. And now it's back. I don't know how much of that you heard. We seem to be dropping packets all over the floor. Anyway, I'll continue and we'll get this in the recording later if it's a problem. So instead of paying $10 in fees to open a channel so you can do a tenth or hundredth or thousandth of a penny, that's not really worth it. But now let's assume I wanted to buy a laptop, or I wanted to buy a bunch of t-shirts from an online merchant. And let's say I want to spend $150. Okay, that's a lot of t-shirts. And I want to spend $150 with an online merchant. Now, with $150 payments, making an on-chain transaction kind of makes sense. And then it's worth it, right? It's worth doing. I might want to do it with an on-chain transaction, even if I'm paying a $5 fee or a $10 fee for $150, it might be worth it. Now, instead of doing that transaction on-chain, what I can do is, if that merchant accepts Lightning payments, I can open a $250 channel to that merchant and then send $150 over the Lightning channel to that merchant to make my purchase. Now, I've still paid a $10 fee to open the channel, which I would have paid anyway to do the on-chain transaction. But now, not only do I have the t-shirts that I wanted to buy, I also have an open channel. I have $150 of that channel on the merchant side, and I still have $100 of that channel on my side because I opened a bigger channel. Now I can send payments back and forth across that channel for that capacity. And that's how you can really make the most. So from my perspective, as Lightning Network becomes more prevalent in use and more merchants and exchanges support it, you basically never do an on-chain transaction. Anytime you do an on-chain transaction, instead of doing a regular payment on-chain, what you do is you use that opportunity to open a channel or close a channel, or maybe open and close a channel at the same time. and you pay the fee, which you were going to pay anyway, but now you've got a channel that you can use for almost no fee. So this is a good time to thank all of the people who have supported this journey, this mission, this educational mission. Thank you again for letting me do this work. I find it very rewarding to be able to talk about this technology and explain it. And in order to do that, your support has been invaluable. It gives me the freedom to do it. It helps me cover the costs, especially with a number of people on my staff who help me, a whole team of people who help me with the production, with the video, with the audio, with moderating, with posting, and all of the behind the scenes work that needs to happen so that I can do this job effectively. So thank you so much for all of your support. It really means a lot. So not only do I want to thank the patrons, got more than 1,000 patrons who are supporting this mission, but also, of course, the YouTube members who are supporting through membership on YouTube, and of course everybody who shares the work and uses these videos to explain the technology to others. So specifically, I'd like to thank the following patrons who this month not only contributed with their support, contributed with money, but also opted in to have me thank them in person or by name. So I'd like to thank Yes to Crypto, Whackpack, Viking Mark, Tony G, The Goddess Eris, The Swiss Road to Crypto, Taras Eth, T. Buddyman, Sven Sommer, Super Enrico, Spin Backwards, Spectre 135, Soren, Simon Pressler, Sabahan, Richard Taylor, Remco Duma, Ralph Westbay, Rafael Cieslak, Purple Elephant, Papa Ken, PM, Park.io, Outlier Canada, Outback Trader, New Push, Niraj Badaya, Michaela Andrusova, Michael Malone, Lucia, aka Dancing Crypto, Kevin Small, Jock on the Rock, Jeff Shen, Hodlon, Haman, H3, and Guanlo Guang, Gregory L, Globally Yours, Giovanni, Ginnigan, Galler Zoltan, Fun on the Ride, Free Palestine, Fishball Cat, Fingless Cave, Elon Musk, Dr. Times, Demosthenes, David Orban, David Maddock, David Hardage, Dave is an Andreas fan, Daniel Rojas, Crypto Karen, Crypto Kazar, Crypto Monedas TV, Carlos M, Khan Gurel, BTC 313, Brett, Bradley Hansen, Brooklyn Frank, Bitcoin Newbie, Bill Barhead, Baby Kangaroo, Attila Dasso, Anita Posh, Meg Void, and Jax Aloha. That's a lot of wonderful people who have helped so much. I don't know if you noticed some of these names. They also asked some great questions, which then got voted by others. So if you want to ask questions, patrons do get to ask questions in advance. YouTube members get a small advance notice with the question code to ask questions, and then during the live we show the question code so that more people can jump in and ask questions and vote. Our next live stream is going to be 1 month from today, approximately, and we announce that in advance, and you can ask question in advance or come and join us on the live stream. It's going to be an audio only live stream, just like this one. All right. We also have three new workshops coming up on the website. The first one is hands-on hardware wallets, something that's been demanded and asked for many, many, many times. I'm very happy with how this workshop is coming along. Patrons are getting early access this week, everybody else in a couple of weeks. The second one is self-custody, the road to self-custody and wallet security. It's a broad security workshop that contains a lot of information, including how to evaluate the risks that you face as a user and how to protect yourself against being hacked. And finally, inheritance planning, which is being produced by Pamela Morgan, who is the world's foremost expert in inheritance planning. And all three of those workshops are coming to you in the next couple of weeks on aantonop.com. All right, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me for this Q&A live stream, and I hope to see you in about 1 month's time for another session of our monthly live stream Q&A. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone, and all the best.
Hi, I'm Andreas Antonopoulos. If you enjoyed that video, consider that it takes a lot of work to produce open and free content that can be shared with everyone around the world. This isn't sponsored by some company. It's not promoting a product or an altcoin or some kind of investment scheme. My goal is simply to help explain the technology of Bitcoin and open blockchains to as many people as possible in a neutral way that focuses really on the incredible possibilities that this technology brings us. If you'd like to support that mission, subscribe to my channel and go on patreon.com/aantonop, where you can participate and help me build better content for more people. Thank you.